when I came here, I think because everything was different. So obviously comparing the streets of Riyadh and the life of Riyadh, everything is very, how would I say, upscale and posh in Saudi and Riyadh. And then you come, and the very next day, you wake up in the bustling streets of Mardana. It's very crowded, and or you could say, people like in the buses, people pushing you over, honking the horn when you're just walking down the road. Very crowded, narrow roads and stuff like that. So obviously, it was.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Teekotalks. This is your host Luqmaan Rauff, and we are in episode 9 of the stories series. This is season 2B, a continuation of the story series that we had back in season 2. And today marks a landmark in our podcast, since we are doing our first podcast on site. As in the last few podcasts have been over Zoom, and doing the first podcast on site with the help of all our friends around here. Today on our podcast, we have a very good friend of mine, Raashid Nazeer. Assalamu alaikum, bro. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
And Raashid is actually a fourth-year medical student in the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. And he's here in Sri Lanka now. But he was born and raised in Saudi. So today's episode is going to be about Saudi, but unlike previous episodes where we had Sri Lankans who moved to a foreign country, so we get their experience on what it's like moving to a foreign country from Sri Lanka, they're going to go in a bit of a reverse situation here. So it's going to be like from a foreign country, a Sri Lankan who grew up in a foreign country, coming back to Sri Lanka, and about the country that they grew up in and how it's like now. Right?
So most of what I'm going to say is basically comparing Saudi to Sri Lanka, not the other way.
Right. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be based on Saudi and then compared to Sri Lanka. Exactly. So, would you like to tell us something about yourself?
So, I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. So, I spent basically most of my childhood, all of my childhood in Saudi. Right. And I finished my schooling there. And then I came here for university, and my parents are still there. So, if I get an opportunity to go back there afterwards, inshallah, I will be going back.
Oh, that's cool.
So, that's basically home, you could say.
So you've been in Sri Lanka for the last?
For the last 4 years. But before that, I have come on vacations every year, every other year and stuff like that. So I'm familiar with the place. Not obviously not the Colombo setup, and not the living alone in Colombo, but I am familiar with the place and stuff like that.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, like I usually start off my pod, right? I usually start off with what the experience was like moving into the new country that you're going into. That's the first question I asked. So like, what the first day was like, what the first few months were like. But so I would like to ask that question: what the experience was like moving into Sri Lanka, unlike vacation. But before that, would you like to talk about how it was like growing up in Saudi? Like
growing up in Saudi. Okay, so
where exactly were you in Saudi?
So we lived in Riyadh, the capital city.
Okay.
It's, I think, considered one of the biggest cities in the whole world, and it keeps growing. So there are different projects going on and keeps growing. So I was born and raised there in the capital city, and I went to the Sri Lankan National School in Riyadh. Okay. So I was basically surrounded by, you could say, 90% of Sri Lankans. The teachers, the principals, friends, all of them were Sri Lankans.
All of them were Sri Lankans who had migrated to Saudi. And
so basically just like me. Most of them were the ones that were born there and raised there. So very similar people. Most of them Saudis, Sri Lankans, but we had a few Pakistanis, Somalis, Kenyans and stuff, but that was just a minority. Most of them were Sri Lankans. Yeah, so I would say, although I didn't get to interact a lot with the Saudis in school, out of school and everyday life, obviously.
You interact with the natives who are in Saudi. Okay. So then we come to the question: what was it like coming to Sri Lanka after growing up in Saudi? What was the biggest, like, is it not cultural shock, because you are our culture, right? It's the same culture, but what really hit you?
Okay. I think that was a crazy day when I came here. I had to come here and get ready for university in just 2 days.
Okay.
So when I came here, I think because everything was different. Like everything was different. So obviously, comparing the streets of Riyadh and the life of Riyadh, everything is very, how would I say, upscale and posh in Saudi and Riyadh. And then you come, and the very next day, you wake up in the bustling streets of Mardana. It's very crowded, and or you could say, people like in the buses, people pushing you over, honking the horn when you're just walking down the road. Very crowded, narrow roads and stuff like that. So obviously, it was very uncomfortable. But you get used to it with time, and of course the weather. The weather was another thing because in Saudi,
the weather, like, it's hot in Saudi. Right?
It's hot in Saudi, but although it reaches temperatures up to 50, 55 degrees, you're always under the AC. It's a norm there to be under the AC. There's no room without an AC over there. So you don't really feel the weather. Wherever you go, you don't feel the weather.
So, but also it's hot over there. You felt the heat when you came there.
Because you're more, like AC, air-conditioned vehicles, rooms and stuff like that is not the norm over here, right?
Yeah.
So you feel more of the heat over here compared to that.
So like after a few months in Sri Lanka, what did you feel like?
You get used to the place.
to it.
Yeah, you get used to the place, and there are still stuff that I'm getting used to. But yeah, it's
cool.
It's cool.
So you know what? Going back to growing up in Saudi, right? You went to the Sri Lankan school.
Yeah.
It follows the Sri Lankan.
No, it follows the London syllabus.
Right. Okay.
LX syllabus. Yeah, they don't offer. They don't teach the local syllabus.
But then the Saudi syllabus.
Yeah.
So that's different, right? So like I guess they have government schools which teach the Saudi syllabus. So do we have migrants like us, you and me, who would go to such government schools?
Yeah. There are a few that I know personally that have gone to these local schools in Saudi, and they're accustomed to they're more accustomed to the people, the language, and the traditions of that, because basically you grow up with them.
Because that's going to be a majority of locals.
Exactly, yeah.
So like that's exactly what I was heading to. Like, what would you say is the differences between the Saudi local schools and the schools that are catered towards migrants like us?
International schools. In terms of the academics, it would be the international schools are like in English, and they usually follow the London syllabus. But the Saudi schools, they are, I think all of them are in Arabic, and they have like a local syllabus.
So the medium of teaching is in Arabic.
Yeah, Arabic, and they have a separate syllabus as well. Just like Sri Lanka has a local syllabus, they have a local Arabic Saudi syllabus there. That's academic wise, and apart from that, I can't really think of any.
So academics aside, like the structure of the school, like it's the same thing as Sri Lanka, I guess. Like it starts at 8, finishes at 1:30, or does it go on to 4?
No, it's the same thing.
Same thing. And then you're free for the rest of the day. Okay. So what about like other stuff apart from school? Because like the school culture is huge in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
I mean, in Colombo especially, we have this big name schools.
Yeah, I know that.
School culture is big.
It's something that shocked me when I came here, because people even 30 years down the line, they're supporting their school in like different colleges and stuff like that. There's not something. I don't think that's something you see over there. Sure, you take pride in the school of your name, but I don't think the whole alumni association and that whole culture, I don't think it's as strong as over there. So over here, I mean, so like here, you say if you went to Anand school, you recognize yourself even 30, 40 years down the line as an Anandian, right?
Yes.
No, it's not like that. Really. That was, you could say that was a bit of a culture shock.
Talking more about school life, right? Like the experiences you would have had in school life. I guess it's more or less because I remember doing this episode with Botswana. Right?
Yeah.
With Amedius in Botswana, and he was talking about
in
Botswana.
Okay.
Africa.
Yeah.
So he's native, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about how school is over there, and it goes on until 4, and then So we're just like exchanging
Differences.
school banter, like how they also used to have the same type of fights in the intervals and
Yeah.
going on school trips and the school culture and
School
how
culture.
the principals were. They used to beat them up and like you can't beat up children here. So like how is it like in Saudi?
Okay, so in Saudi, so a little background about our school is our school was basically started off as like this community school
Okay.
with a very few number of students and very few teachers. Where the ambassador at that time, I think it was in 1988, they realized, okay, there are a lot of Sri Lankan students here. We need to give them quality education, but at a lower rate.
Alright.
So most of the international schools in Saudi was costs as much as universities. So they're very expensive.
I mean, if you want to study in English, you need to go to an international school, and it costs.
It costs a lot. So
you don't have government schools that teach in English.
not that I know of.
Alright.
So then they were like, okay, look, we need to get down teachers from Sri Lanka. So and so it basically started in a very humble, manner, and then like slowly they upgraded to another school, and then from that it was basically a villa, so a person's villa, and then every room had been converted into a classroom, and then some rooms were built basically in the playground or in the yard. So basically a very humble beginning. So and then a villa right next to it was the kindergarten and stuff like that. And then later on, so obviously people used to make, not people, we used to make fun of our own school, saying, okay, look, this is a house, this is a villa or something like that. And we couldn't play football because even if we did play football, we'd have to keep it down because it was in a residential area.
Okay.
So there were many times when the neighbors would complain to the municipal council, and they'd come over and check and ask us to like keep it down and stuff like that. And we get a lot of complaints, stuff like that. So that's obviously the downsides of having this school in a residential area.
So the school, was it a mixed school or
It was it was separate. Like there was a boys wing and a girls wing, but we did have certain functions where we'd come together.
But like generally, local government schools are
it's
absolutely same. So there's like girls' school and boys' school.
I don't think there are any schools in Saudi, to my knowledge, that are mixed. I think there are a few schools, but most of it, the default is it should be should be segregated. That it was segregated.
So just a point that when you come out and play football and stuff, right? So like you it's hot. It's hot throughout the year.
Yeah.
So like
throughout the year, as in except for December, January, February, it gets a little cold there. But and like you were saying, it gets very hot. But then
so like I'm assuming you'll get interval or break around 10 or around 12.
Not just interval. Any free time we take the ball and we go out.
So like under the scorching sun?
Not really. So like initially, like I said, when we I think about 20 years ago, not 20 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have
a shade.
So people when standing for assembly, they'd get heat strokes and stuff like that. So
they made us stand under the sun for assembly.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's the same here. I mean, it's the same here. We used to stand under the sun for assembly like when we were in school, and then they put up a thing. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then
we used to faint even with the thing.
Yeah, with the thing.
Yeah.
So there was this particular principle.
So you all have assemblies?
We do have assemblies.
Okay,
so most of the teachers, they came from Sri Lanka, so they tried to bring most of the Sri Lankan customs and all over there. So when we had this principal, so when he starts talking, most of them start painting.
Is it related or is it just coincidence?
No, it's just like he starts talking for a really long time.
Okay.
So then everybody.
So like, do the government schools are aware, like if the Saudi schools, then they also have assemblies in the same?
Yeah, they have assemblies and stuff like that. Nothing too different from ours. I think there's a shorter. Less people keep paint. So then after some time, so So, like I said, our school is funded by us and well-wishers and people who wish to donate and stuff like that. So with time, when we get donations and stuff like that, they built a shade over a playground, and I think it was more like we were able to play more and survive more basically.
That's cool. So like moving on, right? And another thing that we're talking, right? So not just you, like I've noticed from a lot of people who are moving from the Middle East, when they talk Middle East in general, they don't say houses, they say villas.
Villas? No. You get apartments.
So like the first time I spoke to someone and they were like, so where do you live? Where are you going to live in Sri Lanka? And she was like, I have a villa in Dehira. Like, there are villas in Dehira? Like, there are villas in Dehira? Because
you mean she was shocked by the fact that you talked about villa?
No, she told me she's going to live in a villa in Dehira.
Okay.
And I was shocked that there are villas in Dehira because villas are like, as far like my image of villa is a single house with a huge garden.
Okay.
And villas are huge. We have villas in UAE.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh? And then I realized he's just talking about a house.
Yes.
So, is that the terminology?
I think myself too. When you said villa, I just thought of a normal house.
Normal house.
I think the term that you use for villa, I think I would call it a bungalow.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Bungalow?
Villas, bungalows are the same thing.
Is it the same?
And as far as I don't know if it's just me or just the Sri Lanka thing. I haven't checked it in analysis.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I just wanted to.
That's another thing about the houses there. So like non-Saudis, you can't own any property in Saudi.
Okay.
So even houses, villas, apartments, you can't own.
Cars.
Cars you can. But,
Real estate.
Real estate, exactly. So you can say real estate. So there's a bit of a bummer because you know how you have this Mahagedra over here, and so when you go to your Mahagedra, all of your childhood friends, childhood memories, all of that is in and around that area. So, exactly. So every corner has a memory, right? So for us, it wasn't like that. So we stayed in rented apartments. So for say 5-10 years, we stay in this particular apartment, and 5-10 years in another apartment. So it's like part of our childhood is like in different areas. Exactly. So it's like the play. So say when we were like pretty old, like I'd say like 17, 18, 19, we'd visit, not exactly visit, we'd go like in the car to visit the apartment that we were basically when we were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So some memories and stuff like that. But obviously we wouldn't go inside because there's somebody else living inside that house. So yeah, that's a bit of sad.
I remember, actually sad.
Yeah, that's really sad. That's actually sad. What's sadder is that so the school that I stayed in. So when I was in school, from kindergarten until grade 12, we stayed in one particular building. And so I think about 2 years after I graduated, we had gotten enough funds to move to a bigger, better, proper school. Okay, so a school that was purpose-built. So they moved there. So this building, which I told you was a villa that school was in, they started demolishing it. So I think my brother, he took a video of the demolition and he sent it to us like on the group. And it was really heartbreaking because that house, that villa, that school actually, like every corner of it had millions of stories. It's something else.
That's just your childhood.
Exactly. There was nothing you can do about it, is it? So yeah. The school part, I think you guys would not be able to relate to it, no? Because schools are here for like 50, 60, 100 years.
Like even now, right? Like I know friends who study in the same classroom that their dads studied.
Wow.
Okay. Or their uncles and it's just
So it stays.
That's the legacy.
Exactly. And even when it comes to your houses, it's, in Mahagedra, all of your memories are all there and stuff like that. You could say like this is the people that lived in the Gulf and then came back to their countries like Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan. It's like this niche people where, who were born and raised in Saudi. So they're used to Saudi and the whole Saudi life and everything. And then they came back over here. So, there's like this niche people that, like, we have this group or this page on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, where they post like stuff like this, relatable stuff. So, it's not a lot of people. So Sri Lankans who were born and raised here.
It's a very specific group.
Exactly. That's what I said.
Not the Sri Lankans who were born and raised
Exactly.
in India.
And not the Saudis as well. So it's like, a very niche group.
Exactly. I don't know if it should come from like this, but like, I feel like it's home for all, but they don't allow.
Exactly. Yes. 100%. Like, see, right now, so they don't give, obviously they don't give citizenships and they don't give permanent residence.
This is common across almost all countries that they don't give citizenship regardless of how long you've stayed.
Exactly. So my father, for instance, he has stayed in Saudi more than he has stayed in Sri Lanka. So in his lifetime, so he's about 64 years old and he's lived more in Saudi than in Sri Lanka. So it's crazy. But he still does not have any residence permit.
There's no hold
Permanent
whatsoever.
Exactly. So even me right now, I don't have my residence permit. So if I am going to my home country, the country that I consider home, my childhood country, I'd have to take a visa, like apply for a visa, wait in line, get the visa, and then go. So yeah, so like I said, so these feelings around, being born and raised in the Gulf, and then coming back here, is a very niche group, that only a very few people can understand. So you consider that your home and like the place where you were raised and stuff like that, but they don't consider that. So yeah, I mean, you could say like the only thing that so I think the thing that I'm happy about at least is, say, in my passport and in my ID it says, okay, born in Riyadh. Okay, that's good enough.
I mean,
to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like just on the same line, so you would have had friends from other Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. So you also had Saudi friends who were immigrating Saudi. So it's just a stereotype. It's definitely a stereotype that I have, and I guess everyone has, that Saudis are filthy, right? Natives are really filthy. So like I guess like it's just that everyone is a prince in some way or another. Right? I'm pretty sure that's not true. There's obviously going to be the normal middle class and things like that. But like, so how does that like we have friends who are native Saudis like.
Yeah. So basically, even the like you said, so there's low class, middle class, and high class, you could say. But then even the low class is well looked after by the government. So even if you don't have a job, I think once you reach 18 or something, if you are looking for a job but you can't find a job, the government pays you for staying at home. So, but I think what I heard was 5,000 riyals a month, which is about 240,000 rupees a month.
Get into the finances.
So it's well compensated. Even the low class people are well compensated. So and they get opportunities for for buying houses and stuff like that. So even low class people, you really can't consider them low class. They may not have a lot of assets and stuff like that. Exactly. So something like that. But I would say, I mean, so the majority you don't find Saudi beggars or anything like that. I don't think it gets that level. But there are people who who have had it hard. But Saudi is a very generous country. I think if I had to describe the people of Saudi in one word, I would say karama. It's generosity. So they're very generous people. So if you see somebody who, it's hard to see another Saudi or any not just Saudi, any nationality. So, and since we're speaking about locals, Saudis, they help each other a lot. So if you see somebody who is not able to afford something, or who is not in a good state, there's enough and more people to
lift them up and
exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, honestly. That's I think one of the best parts about the Saudi people. They're very generous and hospitable.
That brings me to talk about the people of Saudi.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to ask you about what your experiences were